Mr. Mayor? Sorry, sir, I can't hear anything in the chamber.
Can you hear me talking at all?
I can hear you now, but I can't hear anything else.
All right, well, I'm just advising everybody to please speak into the microphone so that everything can be heard. And we shall all endeavor to do so there. Thank you for that, Mr. Deputy Mayor. First item of business is public comments. There is a sign-up sheet on the podium there if you have signed up. Do you have anybody? I think Commissioner Lindy has signed up.
Good evening. Good evening, LaDon Lindy, Sunnyside, Washington. I wasn't really coming in here in an official capacity. I wanted to check in from time to time, and of course, when my wife asks me to do something, I do that. And so I'm glad I could be here. I did just want to make one comment, which is thank you for your participation in our regional crime lab in Yakima. Discussing this with the mayor for just a bit prior to the meeting, and great model for us, and I hope it's something that we learn and can use in the future. The fact that if we collaborate and work together, we can get a better product, often with less money. We're excited to see that this is moving closer to fruition and activity. We had a presentation from Chris Wickenhagen from YVCOG this morning for the Board of County Commissioners, and it sounds like their go-live date, at least for part of the services, will be May 1st. And so it's exciting to get closer to that. And again, thank you for being willing to be part of that.
Thank you, sir. And the other name on the list is Sandra Lindy.
Mr. Lindy be the only one speaking, so I'm going to speak to you quickly about something that might be an opportunity for the city to participate in. You know, Sunnyside United Unidos has been here for 10 years, and the school district has been the fiscal agent, has carried the grant. We cannot continue being that agent anymore, and so that might, when we want to keep this going in some fashion, and it will a little bit through the ESD, but it won't at the level it is unless another partner comes forward. So that's something you're interested in, contact our district and start talking about it, because we certainly think it's a good program for the community. Sandra Liddy on the school board, and I appreciate all of you and all the work you do, and I think this is the best city. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other public comments? No, somebody who hasn't listed their name? All right, moving on, consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of the following: payroll vouchers. Approved payroll voucher numbers 119265 through 119269, and wire transfers as listed for $711,528.62 for the period ending February 28, 2023, and March 25, 2023. Claim vouchers. Approved claim voucher numbers 106064 through 106110, and wire transfers as listed for $152,465.92 for the period ending on March 29, 2023. Approved claim vouchers 106111 through 106164, and wire transfers as listed for $146,866.37 for the period ending on April 5, 2023. Council members, is there any item that you'd like to remove from the consent agenda for discussion? Hearing none, what is the desire of council on this item?
Move to approve. I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilor Beeler, second by Councilor Hicks to approve the consent agenda. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. I too vote aye, motion carries. Active agenda. Collective bargaining agreement with Sunnyside Police Officers Guild, 1/1/23 through 12/31/25. Consider approving a resolution approving the CBA between the city and the Sunnyside Police Officers Guild. Madam City Manager.
So tonight is the Jameson show. The first 4 items will be her items, so I will pass.
Thank you. We have been negotiating with the Sunnyside Police Guild since summer of last year, and finally have come to a resolution with them. It is a little more than we were expecting when we went through budget, so we are also asking for a budget amendment for $188,000 here. But the cost of living adjustment for 2023 is 5%. And then 2024 is 4.5, and 2025 is 4.5. Are there any questions on the contract or?
Questions for Ms. Horner? So you're talking about cost of living increases. Is there other things that have been added to the contract that wasn't there before, or?
There are some other changes. One of the ones that was a little spendy that I can think of off the top of my head is we adjusted the insurance premium split. We're trying to get everyone on the city at the same split level. Prior to this, everybody kind of had different stipulations. We're trying to sort of match up the contracts. And then Body cameras, we had to put some stipulations there for that.
Mostly wages.
Wages,
Yeah, it's really wages. Everything else was very minor. Like, we didn't increase any allowances, and actually their insurance didn't increase because
We increased the bilingual, from 3% to 5% for those Spanish-speaking officers.
It's really not, and like, there's no one thing that you can say, oh, that's the one thing that caused it.
Higher than we
It's mostly salary.
Any other questions? Right, what is the desire of council on this item?
To approve. Second.
Mr. Beaver? Yes. All right, we have a motion by Councilor Ripley, second by Councilor Beaver to approve a resolution approving this CBA between the city and the Sunnyside Police Officers Guild. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. I two vote aye, motion carries. I do want to thank those involved in the negotiating. I know I have learned in my time on city council that negotiating a union contract is much more complicated than I ever imagined. And it's complicated on both sides, and we're trying to find out what we can do for the best interest of everybody involved, and it is not an easy task. So you are to be commended for your hard work on these. Item B, classification and compensation schedule update. Consider adopting an ordinance updating the classification and compensation schedule to reflect the approved salaries. City Manager.
And I will hand this over to Ms. Porter.
Ms. Horner.
Thank you. This is just, sort of a housekeeping measure following, approving the collective bargaining agreement for this and the International Association of Firefighters. So both of those agreements have been signed in the last couple of months, so we're just updating our compensation schedule to reflect those changes.
Questions for Ms. Horner? So is this going to be reflected in our budget amendment as well?
It is,
As
yes.
part of that $188,000?
Yes, correct.
What is the desire of council on this item?
Move to approve.
All right, we got a motion by Councilor Ripley, second by Councilor Beeler to adopt an ordinance updating the classification and compensation schedule to reflect the approved salaries. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. I two vote aye, the motion carries. Now to item C, budget amendment number 1. Consider adopting an ordinance amending the 2023 budget. Madam City Manager.
Thank you. This is the first budget amendment for fund year 2023. The first part of it is really updating the beginning fund balances from the money we had when we left 2022 that we brought into it in 2023. So when we did the budget initially, we are actually coming in with about $670,000 more than what we thought we would have at that time. And then in addition, any revenue and expenditure increases that have already been approved by the council are included in this budget amendment. And the total, basically, effect of this amendment is a decrease to what our expected ending fund balance by about $680,000. So I'm happy to go through some of the increases, but like I said, these are all things that have been passed through council previously that either have to do with, some of them may have been passed last year, but most of them have been passed this year, that have to do with grants, wage increases, and other enhancement requests.
Questions for Ms. Horner?
Yeah. Where was the 6.6 forward from 20?
Well, so we had a lot of the ARPA expenditures, that, especially things that the police department had purchased, that we weren't sure if those purchases were going to go through at the end of 2022 or if they would go through here at the beginning of 2023. So we kind of kept those budgeted in 2022 because we're not allowed to overspend our authorization. So we have to make sure that they're reflected in in the fund year if there's any possibilities that they're gonna go through. And then whatever doesn't go through, we end up spending this year, we just roll over.
Further questions for Ms. Horner? Was there the slightest chance that any of that can be tucked away and put in kind of our rainy day fund, or are we kind of beyond that point already this year?
We tuck away and put in rainy day funds, what the council tells us to. So I think as we prepare to go into budget this coming year, if that's something the council would like to discuss, we can always look at it.
I'm always a fan of the city having something stowed away for, emergencies,
Yes.
unexpected things, and, certain comfort levels.
Yes. I will point out that we did do, I did do our analysis of our ending fund balances at, I think in the third quarter of 2023, or 2022, so about 6 months ago. And, aside from the water fund, which is self-funding several projects this year, including the Sixth Street, which is almost $1 million, all of the funds are staying within their minimum fund balance requirements.
Kind of a disturbing report on one of our neighboring. Where their budget is looking, and that's, a little discouraging, and I'm hoping that we will, in fact, I'm going to insist that we avoid that. All right. No further questions for Ms. Horner. What is the desire of council for this item?
Move to approve. Second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilor Beeler, a second by Councilor Hicks to adopt an ordinance amending the 2023 budget. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. I too vote aye, motion passes. And item D, first quarter financial report for fiscal year 2023. Discuss financial outlook following first quarter financial. Yes, Ms. Horner?
Yes, sir. I have provided to you, kind of a basic layout of our financials for quarter one of 2023. It is not as pretty because it came right out of our system, so next time I'll try to get my charts and graphs together, but this time I didn't. The first page of this shows basically our revenues and expenditures from January through the end of March. At the bottom, you can see, or actually with each fund, you can see the percentage that we either received from our budget or spent from our budget. So year to date, we are at 17.6% of our revenues and 20.3% of our expenditures. And we are, revenue-wise, we're right on track. The last few years, the last 2 years, we were 17% as well. The year before that, we were at 21%, and then the year before that, 16%. So the first quarter is a little, it's typical because we get our biggest, property tax payment not until the second quarter. So you'll see that number jump at the next one. And then I have some detailed information for you for some of our revenues I'll start with. Pages 2 through 10 show the tax revenue, which is our biggest revenue source for the city, and kind of where we're at with that. The first page is our main one, so that's page 2 of the report. That shows our general fund taxes that we've received so far this year, and we're at 21.5%, which is right on track, actually a little higher than we would expect. So I think we're doing great there on revenues. All the other funds that receive tax revenue are also listed here. I'm happy to address any one in particular if you'd like to, but everything's on track. I will point out that the real estate excise tax funds are much higher than we had expected. So that's a reflective of a good housing market. So people are selling houses and we're getting some tax benefit from that.
Councilmember, do you have any questions up to this point on this report?
Great. So we start then at page 12. We're going to start looking at our expenditures. The first page here, oh, I'm sorry, actually, we're going to look at our revenues for goods and services. Whoops, I didn't realize I had that one in here. So this is basically our rates for our water, sewer, garbage, ambulance funds. in addition to things like the jail contracts where we're actually selling products to people. We're at 22% here, so we're also right on track here. One of the funds, if you look at the ambulance fund, it is a little bit low, but part of that was a little bit of a transitional error in collecting some of the billings with having our interim chief, and he's gotten those figured out. So that number should jump at the next quarter. The other thing I wanted to point out that I have in here on page 14 is our interest revenue. So because of our sort of high interest environment right now, inflation's up. It's not good for the economy necessarily, but it is good for our revenue on our interest. So we're actually already at 45% of what we had budgeted for this year, which is about $175,000. Okay, so expenditures, page 15 lays out the operations and maintenance expenditures. So this takes out all of those capital projects or loans or any of that stuff. This is just our operations and maintenance. This is the one that we want to be at 25%, as close as we can get it, aside from hiring some, temporary employees over the summer season. We want this number to stay consistently at 25, and right now we are at 24.9, so we're right on track. Page 16 is the comparison over the last few years, so you can kind of look at where our operations and maintenance have come in over the last few years. We are, this first one is, well, it looks like, sorry, I should have written better notes for myself. But anyway, it looks like we're right on track for expenditures for O&M at 20.3%. So I'm sorry, the first page was including that. I don't know, sorry. I'm really not, I apologize. All right, so if we go to page 17, this starts the overview of our salaries and benefits. So this is just staff costs, which I know has been a concern to the council because we have seen some increases to the amount of money that we're spending for salaries and benefits. So I went ahead and provided you with each department to show you kind of where we're at, each department in our general fund. And all of our departments are pretty close to right within our 20 to 25% range. It looks like our dispatch is a little higher, but we have had a lot of overtime in our dispatch center. We've had some open positions. But otherwise, everything in the general fund is on track. And then the other funds can be found on page 22. And this is just salaries and benefits again. And they're all pretty close to on track. It looks like the sewer and the garbage funds are a little higher, so we will probably look at balancing that out in a budget amendment later in the year, probably because of overtime, or those increased. Some of the changes in the garbage contract have caused us to have a little bit more hours for staff time on them. And then the last page of the report, page 23, just shows you our actual fund balances in the bank. So we have our cash accounts and our investment accounts, and then the total in the bank that we actually have is $17 million at the end of March.
Questions for Ms. Horner?
Money, the 17 million, we keep.
So we have, the cash accounts hold $3 million, and then between the LGIP, which is the local government investment pool through Washington State, we have $4 million, and then we have another $10 million in our bonds.
Need protection.
All of our bank bonds are not callable, and they're fixed rate. So I don't think there's anything lower than about 3.7%. And then the LGIP does fluctuate, but it will never lose money. So it may be getting like 0.1% interest, which it did back during COVID, and we got very, very little. in that fund, but it has gone up to about 4% right now.
Other questions? I know it's difficult to predict, but, we've approved a fair number of, housing projects and those types of things. Are we looking forward to a certain amount of revenue from, building permits coming up here in the next couple of months?
Well, I certainly hope so, and I was hoping to see that on this financial report. And it has not, a lot of those permits haven't come in yet. It doesn't look like they're far enough through the development process. So we do have quite a bit budgeted there, so we're gonna cross our fingers that that all comes in correctly. But your Martin over there assures me that it will.
No pressure, Mr. Martin.
And, we've done some rough math in our heads last week, and we have about 1,000 possible units in development right in the next few years.
Yeah, so we have several housing projects that are in the works right now. We have Country Gals, we have Martin Velasquez, we have the apartments over by Walmart, Catholic Charities, they're over off Allen Road, and then tomorrow night we're hearing about another 400-unit apartment complex off the road with Planning Commission. All of those, none of those projects are under 100 units. Probably a little over. In the one off Outlook and Borden's, that's 800 units, and then Catholic Charities, Martin Velasquez, and else, that's probably enough. So I'm putting together the numbers for OFM. They're due April 14th. I'll have the numbers from April 2022 to April 2023. I'll have those available for the next council.
Do that. I know we've approved these projects. I'd like to hear how they're progressing. It's kind of exciting to see this happening. Sunnyside's had a very tight housing market for a long time, and for whatever reasons, but we seem to see that moving forward, and that takes some of the pressure off of housing and those looking for places to rent or buy. That is a good thing, provided that the real estate market continues to operate with us. But there's always variables on there. Any further questions for staff, Mr. Beeler?
The Outlook apartment.
So the one on Outlook, it is owned by a couple of builders and developers out of Tri-Cities. It's right on the west side of Wheat. 14 acres.
No further questions, we'll move on. Item E, Lodging Tax Advisory Committee's 2023 Funding Reallocation Recommendations. Consider approving a reallocation of $30,000 in 2023 lodging tax funds from A&A Promotions to the City of Sunnyside for the 2023 Sunnyside Cinco de Mayo Festival. Madam City Manager.
I will turn this over to Ms. Renteria. She was the tax liaison. Okay.
Have met in February. In February, we received an email from Amy Rubio with A&A Promotions stating she would be coordinating this year's Cinco de Mayo Festival. And so the city of Sunnyside is coordinating it this year. So we're just asking that you reallocate that money from them to the city of Sunnyside. A&A Promotions hasn't received any of this money, it's just a form.
Questions for Ms. Renteria? Okay, yeah, as council is aware, we've had some changeovers in the promotions. A&A Promotions is no longer wanting to do that, and so the city has taken over in that absence to make sure that this event continues. This is a big deal for Sunnyside. It's wildly popular. We're hoping that the fallout from last year isn't going to be too huge, and that people will attend, and it will be a good and positive event this year. It's been good for our community. It's been good for people at large. I mean, we get people coming from all over the place, so the city's decided we're stepping in. We're going to make sure this event happens.
And just for council and mayor's awareness, we did release a press release today concerning Cinco de Mayo so that people understand the change that's being made and what to expect this year with additional security department will be deploying their drones, and we will have, more volunteers and readily available to the public.
That is good to hear as well. Any questions for staff on that item? Hearing none, what is the desire of council on this item?
Second.
All right, we got a motion by Councilor Beeler, second by Councilor Ripley to approve a reallocation of $30,000 in 2023 lodging tax funds from A&A Promotions to the City of Sunnyside for 2023 Sunnyside Cinco de Mayo Festival. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. I also vote aye, the motion passes. Items from council members. Item A, mayor's appointments for boards and commissions. I have nothing at this time. Item B, council request status report. Madam City Manager.
There are no items or nothing to report on any of our items, so I want to let you know we're hoping to get warmer weather and different things going on, where we will address some of the items on this.
Council members, if you have anything that you would like added to the, council request status report, you can speak up now, or you may call either myself or the city manager later on. Is there anything anybody would like to add at this time? All right, other reports, announcements, and/or questions by council? Not hearing a whole lot here. Mr. Deputy Mayor, have you got anything?
Not this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Right, I also have nothing to report. The only thing I could report is what Commissioner Lindy's already reported about the crime lab. And that's only via what he told me just a few minutes ago. So, well, I'm personally very excited. I read the news report today about the progress of that, and I'm pretty excited about it. I think that we have here a model for the state. Mr. Hicks?
Just reiterating again that, the car show's coming out 22nd. Most welcome. How about the senior class?
That has been a senior tradition for quite some time. So,
1990.
yes, we don't want to miss that. We're going to be in town though. Item D, upcoming council meetings. Madam City Manager.
We have a franchise ordinance that will be on next council, a code enforcement citation, solid waste management plan, and then executive session. One will be to consider real estate, and the second one will be. And May 1st, to remind everyone that the swearing in will be taking place.
Last event that we had at the community center for our employees was wonderfully well attended and extremely popular, and I encourage all council members to be there. I think it is great moral support for these folks, and they like to know that they have the support of council. All right, items from department heads. Madam City Manager.
I'm going to start tonight, and I wanted to apologize to Councilor Ripley. At the last meeting, you asked about the SWAT cameras, and I said, well, I think we were waiting on them. Actually, beginning March 1st, they started installing SWAT cameras. I was getting an email from something that says SWAT Safety Daily Digest. I thought it was junk mail, just telling me like a newsletter. No, it was actually giving me the locations and status of all of the cameras being installed, and there was, I think, 15 of them. So beginning on March 1st, they started installing cameras all around town. So just so you know, it was completely an oversight on my part to know that because I didn't have an answer, but I obviously did, I just wasn't reading my email very well.
No problem.
And as far as for citizens to know, we have, police department issued a press release today so that we can, let the citizens know. So when those questions come up, they can understand. And Chief Lehman will probably give us a little bit more during his report. I want to apologize for that. I didn't think that would be a daily digest. I thought it was like, anyway. wanted to fess up to that one. And, otherwise, everyone knows that I was in Alaska the week before, last week was spring break, so, not a lot really going on in the city. But this week, we have, we're scheduling and planning another staff retreat that we can gather everything we need for a May council retreat. So Jackie will be, polling the council in May when you can have a retreat. This will be a 5, 10, 20-year plan for our city on what we want to see happen with our city. So, we'll be talking about, capital projects, different kind of things that we want to see in the future, brainstorming, that kind of thing. Then in June, we're going to schedule a community forum. That'll be the first one that we have for the year. I will be polling the council at that May meeting on what we want, what topics we think the citizens want to hear about. And maybe want to do the forum a little different, where we don't set up kind of stations, but we just kind of free roam and let everybody, kind of just see kind of what you want in that meeting. And then otherwise, we just are really busy, have a lot of things going on with the weather getting better. I saw someone out spraying weeds this morning, which, I don't know, do you spray weeds in the rain?
I can.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know, I don't spray weeds. So. I will now turn this over to Jackie to report out.
Okay, I sent out a ribbon cutting notice for April 28th for John L. Scott, and that is on Yakima Valley Highway. It's in front of the 410 Market. And I've received confirmation from a few members that the council that will be present. So I'll be sending out a notice that there will be no action will be taken. And then I helped Nova Espresso. They're just right outside of the police department next to the Advanced Collision. They were going to do a ribbon cutting, but the owner was a little nervous to do it, so she ended up canceling. But I just wanted to let you know that there's up there for dreams. Then we also have the Spirit of Sunnyside happening on April 22nd at the community center, and we're inviting anybody to submit nominations for those categories, and I'll be sending out a link where everybody can visit, staff, anybody from the public and council can submit nominations. Then we also received the Cinco de Mayo lineup for performances. I'll be sending that over to Daniel with Yakima Valley Tourism so that they can put together our posters, and we'll be sending. Mr. Martin, please speak really close to the microphone.
Okay, so I just have a few things. So we've been working with, I've been working with the Community Economic Development Commission. We have put together a criteria for a revolving loan fund, which should be kind of cool. It's going to be targeting commercial businesses specifically, so it's going to be a low interest, city administered revolving loan fund. I'm going to be bringing it to council for presentation in May, so you'll be seeing that pretty soon here. Put a lot of work into this and a lot of thought into this, and a really cool product when it's finally on April 19th, we'll be working with Yakima County to host a rental assistance fair. We were supposed to have one last October, but it just never really came to fruition. But April 19th, we're having one. It's at the community center, Southfield Park. Yeah, so it's going to be from noon to 7 p.m. Pretty busy. I'm hoping for a good turnout. Kind of the last push for rental assistance, COVID money. So we're kind of excited to host that down here in Sunnyside. And then the last part, it's been on the report, and we're finally moving forward with it for code enforcement. But I've put together a citation package for code enforcement, so there's kind of the last piece of the puzzle. We've adopted the IPMC last year, we did the notice and order criteria. And so we have the beginning of the puzzle and the end, we just had to fill something in the middle, and this citation package is kind of that middle piece before we put the pressure on with something like a notice. So you'll be seeing that at your next council.
Yeah, I have a couple items to report on. So the Sixth Street project is going well. It's getting a little bit more complicated, as I'm sure you guys are probably gonna be hearing from citizens, adjacent to the project. As we started out, it was in just kind of small areas, doing the water main, getting it done, and connected with the north and south sides of the railroad tracks. But as the project grows, as we start doing curb gutter sidewalk, those type of things, there is more of an impact to the citizens and to the. So, just everybody be patient. It will get, it's complicated stuff is behind us, so it should be getting. And then we had Easter egg hunt this weekend, went really well, met with Mary today. I think they gave away, I think she said about 15,000 eggs. So, some were pre-filled that we bought, about 4,000, they actually stuffed them themselves, which recommended we just buy them next year and not waste that time, but was a great turnout. It's a little bit of a fiasco a little bit. Mary learned definitely from this experience. Next year we will do things a little bit differently, but overall it was a great.
Ms. Ward? Thank you. I do have a couple things. I wanted to reach out to the finance committee members and see if we can start a quarterly finance committee meeting with the committee of council members. The financial report that I gave today is something that I would like to be able to go through with the actual finance committee and then provide something a little bit shorter and more concise to council on a quarterly basis. So I was hoping that we might be able to find some dates that we could set up on a quarterly basis through the rest of the year. So it would be like early July and then early October to look at that. So I don't know, Jackie, is it possible for you to send out a notice to the committee members to ask them for a good date? Okay. So look for an email here on the finance committee. Just to keep you apprised of the CBA, the collective bargaining situation. So you just approved the police. We have another one that is very close to closing, and then an additional one that is just really starting to open up. So those will be the last two for this year, and then we'll have two next year. Actually 3 next year, because we only did a 1-year agreement or a 2-year agreement for the fire. So it never stops. Also, I just wanted to add to Trevor's information about that loan program. That is one of the things that you guys approved last year with ARPA money. So that initial fund is being started. I think at the time you guys had approved 300,000, 250. Okay. So, and just a reminder that as we start getting those programs in place, we will start bringing resolutions to you guys for those so that we can actually officially obligate that money, which has to happen before the end of 2024. So we still have another year and a half to get there to make sure all those, every penny is obligated to one program or another, and then we can actually spend it through the end of 2026.
Thank you. I've got some numbers for you. So the first thing I'll talk about is 327 to 410. We've handled 315 incidents, 153 traffic stops with 32 arrests, 20 criminal non-traffic, 10 criminal traffic, 53 traffic infractions. And I'm going to read off these stat areas. So aggravated assaults, there's a 0% change year to date from last year. Burglaries and breaking and entering are down 42.9%. Motor vehicle theft is down 45.5%. Murder and non-negligent manslaughter is down 100%. Robberies are down 100%. Simple assaults are down 4.5%. Theft of a motor vehicle are down 50%. Theft of motor vehicle parts or accessories are down 83%. And weapons violations are down 53% from year to date, previous year. Flock cameras, like City Manager said, are being installed. We have 21 of the 40 installed as of right before this meeting. I got the daily update. And $123,000 of that project came from the county ARPA funds, so we were awarded that by the county commissioners. So that'll go a long way towards that project. Body cameras are out and fully functioning right now in our patrol division. We're still working out a few kinks on the corrections division with privacy and things like that in jail, so we're trying to get that ironed out. And the drones are currently in operation. We have 7 pilots trained and certified by the FAA within the police department. So I have any questions?
Got away.
Sometimes, I can check those numbers for you. Some are tracked, not all are. But it just depends on how the officer tracks it. They'll either track it as a vehicle pursuit, or they'll put it in as a code that is associated with the new laws that allows us to not do the things we're allowed to do before. But I think if an officer says, hey, I'm making a traffic stop on this license plate at this location, they just took off on me, I don't think those are all getting tracked. But there are times where that's happening a couple times a week. I'm sorry, what's that?
What's the status of your dash cam?
So the dash cam, that's an Axon issue, that's the company that we went with. And as far as the dash cam, they're a year out. And that's just the production where they're at in the process. So I know that several other agencies in the area are waiting on. So those are gonna be, I'm hoping the end of this year, beginning of next.
I just want to say I appreciate your press release on the block cameras. The amount of buzz that those things have been creating is just phenomenal. And I like that because that means that the bad guys are hearing about the fact that they're there as well. I firmly believe that if you clamp down on crime, then that does cause crime to go down. And the fact that they know that we're there watching them, and we can get their license plate numbers, we can triangulate shots and all those kinds of cool things. It's gonna disincentivize them to get involved in those things.
We personally, at Sunnyside Police Department, haven't used them for one of our cases yet. However, the county has used them to identify a suspect in the shooting they had. And Grandview has put in the system a vehicle that's a suspect in one of their shootings that has hit, actually leaving town today, and then in Grandview's SWAT system it hit, although we weren't able to locate the car. But it is working, we're getting the hits, so.
I'm excited about that.
Acting Chief Holbrook?
So I'll start off with the numbers as well. The last 3/27 to 4/10, we've had 173 emergency calls for service, which brings us year-to-date to 1,280. A couple things that are big for us at the firehouse. We will be getting our visit from Washington Survey and Rating this Wednesday the 12th. For those who are not familiar with the process, this is an audit or a survey they receive once every 5 years. We're in essence pretty much given a grade on our abilities as a fire department, and that goes beyond just emergency services, goes into everything from fire prevention, water flow models as far as use for suppression, pretty much everything in between things. So everything on our end has been completed and compiled with the assistance of the building department as well as the water department. So we are ready for their arrival on Wednesday. Good results. In addition, another positive light, if anybody received their email today, we did have 3 career firefighters start today. It was their first day on what we're doing as kind of calling an academy week, which is pretty much a long orientation and acclimation into the fire department, right, fire services. The numbers that we brought on this go around are all either were existing or previous volunteers. So this academy week is mainly just either a refamiliarization or just kind of a brush up on some things to get ready to report for shift as early as this coming up. That brings our staffing level up to our budget number of. We're excited to have them. So any questions?
Well, thank you, everybody. Nothing further on the agenda from this manager. Brought up.
And not please.
I think that one thing that I just want to point out, I read just before I came here this evening that today sometime President Biden signed an order that declared an end to the COVID pandemic. So that is good news. our mess. All right, there being no further items on the agenda to come before us this evening, and without objection, this meeting is adjourned at 7:18. Thank you for an efficient meeting.